Hi, Claudia here from Create with Claudia. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm going to be showing you 15 ways to save money when you're quilting. There are a lot of different things to do out there to save some money. I know quilting can be a very expensive habit. Believe me, I know. So I thought I would do this video just to help you out. I have a few videos I've also done in the past, but this sort of ties them all together and hopefully it'll help you out. I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. And I am on social media at Create with Claudia, where you can find all sorts of things that I post daily. So thanks so much for stopping by and enjoy the video. Number one is sew your stash. And I know that sounds sort of simple and it's a no-brainer, but honestly, sometimes you go to that quilt store and man, you see the most gorgeous fabric and you think, that's it, I'm buying that and I want to make a quilt out of it. And then you forget about that fabric you have. And I've made a really concentrated effort the last couple of years to save some money and use up what I have in my stash. One example right now is on the wall, and that's my scrappy fish quilt. And none of that, everything in that was made from stuff off my shelves, fabric off my shelf. It was made from batting that I had on hand. The backing was also from my stash, so everything was from my stash. Number two are those thrift shops, consignment shops, that sort of thing, reuse stores, quilt guilds, and quilt shows. I know I've been to quilt shows before where they have a back room where it's like a swap where you can get maybe like $5, you can get a big grocery bag full of fabric. This is gorgeous fabric I got years ago, and I got this, I think it was $1 for like 4 yards of this fabric. I haven't used it yet. See, this is what I talk about using my stash, but I just love this, like chocolates with a pink background. Anyway, so definitely hit those up. The only thing I would warn you of is just take a look, because I have been burned in the past. When you get that fabric before you buy it, just make sure it doesn't have any holes in it. I remember I got some home once. It was a beautiful piece of fabric, and when I opened it up, it had like holes in it. I think they were moth holes or something. And of course, I didn't want to bring anything into my house either. So, but those are great resources for really inexpensive fabric, and sometimes really nice inexpensive fabric. Number three is things from around your house. Before you go out and buy really expensive things, just look around your house. I mean, there are all kinds of things you can use. I did a video actually for 50 things that you can use from around your house. In addition, there was another follow-up video, an article, 25 more things, and those were viewer tips, so things you don't really think about, like for binding, you can put them on an old paper towel roll, that sort of thing. Just sort of simple things that you can save some money on. It's worth it to think about it before you go out and spend a lot of money. Number four, yard sales and estate sales. I have found some really nice fabric, especially at estate sales. In fact, let me show you one. This is not really quilting fabric, but it's fabric, and if you're a quilter, you love fabric. Hopefully you can see it here. This is just a beautiful piece. I think it's from India. It's like a silk piece with beautiful gold filigree embroidery, that sort of thing. I love this. It was like $1. Now, I'm trying to think how I would incorporate this in a quilt, or you can make maybe a pillowcase or something. It's absolutely beautiful, but definitely hit up yard sales and estate sales. Sometimes somebody's moving or they're downsizing, excuse me. Maybe they're moving to a retirement home, and you can get some really nice bargains on some very nice fabric, and also tools and things like that. I don't want to just limit it to fabric, because you can also get like rulers, that sort of thing. Number five, repurpose that fabric you have at home. There are some really nice things you can do with repurposed fabrics. I made a quilt for my dad years ago when he retired from his ties. I don't have it anymore. My mother still has that. This one is near and dear to my heart. This one, let me just move this over. This is made from my dad's handkerchiefs after he passed away. Maybe you can see it like so. I have it laying down on the table. And I actually had enough. I used all of his handkerchiefs. I made one for my brother, one for my mother, and one for me. And it's just a nice little quilt. So that was free. I mean, it was old handkerchiefs. Last but not least, and this is actually, I have a pattern and I have tips for quilting with denim. Denim quilts. This thing is a bear. It's really heavy. I love this quilt. This is my freeform denim quilt, and this was all made from jeans from me, my husband, my daughter, and the only thing I bought was the the flannel backing on that one. So definitely look around the house for fabrics, maybe some blouses. Just always remember when you are quilting with that, they definitely, depending on the kind of fabric it is, you definitely want to keep that in mind. Maybe if you're using old blouses or something, they might not be 100% cotton. So that is something to keep in mind. Number 6 is look for free patterns. There are so many beautiful free patterns out there. And I write free patterns. Lots of bloggers write free patterns. You have to look at their blogs. They're also fabric companies. I actually did do a video and a tutorial on 10 places to get free patterns. And there's some, like I said, there are just some really nice pieces out there. Unfortunately, I think sometimes people equate free to maybe not as good, and that is definitely not always the case. So definitely take your time looking. And I'm also not saying to not buy your pattern. If you see that pattern that you absolutely love, go out and buy it and support those small businesses and things like that. But if you're really on a budget, a tight budget, it's something to consider. Check with friends and family. You just never know what you can get from them. Sometimes maybe somebody's given up quilting, or they know somebody, maybe somebody they know passed away, that sort of thing. I want to show you 2 things. This is from my next door neighbor who knew what I did, and she had bought this fabric, it's like camping fabric or something like that, years ago and never used it, and I ended up getting, this is all I have left of that, and it was like 5 yards. I've used it for backing and that sort of thing. So that was a great little score. So here's another idea, something from a family member, a distant cousin, or my mother-in-law's cousin, gave me this gorgeous reproduction fabric. Unfortunately, it was from somebody who, a friend of hers or someone that had passed away. And so these are all 1930s reproduction fabrics, and I made this. It's a big king-size quilt. I absolutely love it. And I did have the white backing. I always like to stock up on my white fabric. But honestly, this cost me almost nothing. I used it for the binding and everything. So definitely, you know, always, it doesn't hurt. Most of your friends and family are going to know that you quilt, but if they don't, you could drop them a hint or something like that. But you never know. Sometimes fabric sort of comes out of nowhere. It's really great. Okay, number 8 is really hard for me, and it's in my mentality. I don't know what it is. When you first start, and this is pretty much a tip for more beginners, when you first start quilting, I just recommend taking it slow. Don't go all out and buy everything, whatever. It can get really expensive really fast. Start out slow, maybe just one little pattern and then the fabric for that, because you can spend a lot of money really fast, and you never know. What if you start and then you don't really care for the hobby, or something happens and you can't do it anymore, that sort of thing. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I put that in there because that is what I do. I love to just go out and then I just get excited, and you know, I buy a lot of stuff that I really don't need. Number 9, and this goes right along with number 8. And this is a hard one for me because, again, I have these impulses. But don't buy too much fabric. Fabric is not, especially that the new fabrics and things are very expensive. And you can end up buying, you know, 10 yards of something that you don't need. Really look at that pattern, especially if you're just starting out, and sort of go by those fabric recommendations. Now on the opposite side, if you buy too much, you always have more in your stash, that sort of thing. But if you want to save money up front, just watch how much fabric you buy. I know I still have some fabric. The first time I went out, which was like 30-something years ago, I went shopping for my first quilt fabric, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I bought home, you know, a stack like this, and I still am working on some of that fabric. So just, you know, again, that goes along with lines with the other tip. Just take it slow when you're buying fabric. Number 10, don't just throw out all your batting. Like, you know, when you're cutting it and you're getting ready to quilt it and you have all those maybe thin strips, maybe they're 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever. Or you bought like a queen size and you only needed a double, that sort of thing. Save that batting. You can use it for all sorts of things. You can use it for table runners, but you can also piece your batting, and I'm just going to show you a little example right here. Hold it up and then you can see it on the table. This was 2 small pieces, and I zigzagged sewed them together. And now I have one bigger piece of fabric. That's just an example, but definitely save those batting scraps because those can come in really handy. Okay, number 11, hit the sales. And I know this is something a lot of people forget. You go into a quilt store, you have something in mind, like I need some blue fabric, so you go straight to the blues and that's all you look at, and you kind of forget that back room. Well, I always, when I hit my local quilt store, I go straight to the back and just take a quick look at what they have on their sales shelves. You just never know, and there are some beautiful fabrics and you can get some good deals on it. And sometimes, depending on the quilt store, they might have like a big bin of ones they just really want to get rid of, and you can grab maybe a yard cut or something, half yard, a roll for like $2. You just never know. And or there might be that fabric on the sale that you've been eyeing forever and didn't want to spend the money on. Number 12. Don't forget about your backing on your quilt. Piece your backing. It's a really great technique to use up some of your scraps or stash that you have had for years, maybe you want to get rid of. Let me just show you. This is an example of the backing of a quilt. I used all sorts of, this was a batik quilt, and I actually wanted to use batik on the back as well. Here's the, you can sort of see the front there. But I had some left over here, and I had some other scraps that I just didn't want to use anymore. And it's just a great way to use up, to sort of bust your stash, as they say, and save some money, because you don't have to pay any money for those, for the yardage for the back. Number 13, your local library. They always have a section on crafts or quilting, that sort of thing. Go check out a book for a couple weeks and then see, especially if you're just starting out, maybe they have like a beginner's guide too. See what you need, see what tips they have, that sort of thing. Number 14, YouTube. That's where we are right now. I'm a YouTuber. There are loads and loads of bloggers, quilters that are YouTubers. There are all kinds of fun projects, tips, tutorials, I mean, you name it, you can find it on YouTube. And it's free. That's the best part. So there's a big time way to save some money. Last but not least, and I wasn't even going to add this one until I was cleaning out my sewing spaces, ease up on those tools, especially for beginners that you're going to buy. Tools can be really expensive, and there's some really great fancy gadgets, doodads, all kinds of things that you can get out there for quilting. But they do run into some money, and the reason I added this was I was cleaning out my sewing space and came across a couple of rulers that I have never ever used. One was still in its packaging, and I think I spent like $15 on it or something, and I don't know why I never used it. I guess I saw it in the store and said, hey, that's going to be great. There are all kinds of things that you can get sort of caught up in. Just take your time, and I'm not saying not to buy gadgets, because there are some great ones out there, believe me, and some that I use, and some that I hesitated buying and ended up getting, and they've just been great for my quilting, but others just sit around gathering dust. Okay, so those are my 15 tips for saving money when you're quilting. I do have some other videos and blog posts. I have the, like I said before, the household items, 50 household items for quilting. I also did a follow-up on that, 25 household items for quilting. Those were viewer tips. Another video I did was templates you can use for applique templates, that you can find around the house, so you don't have to even spend money on applique templates. So that's another way to save money. And last but not least is my 44 things you can buy at one of those stores, where everything costs $1. You'd be surprised what you can pick up at a store like that, and that's, you can't beat $1. That's a good price. So check out that video too. I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. I am on social media at Create with Claudia, where I post all kinds of things daily, projects I'm working on, that sort of thing. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.